welcome everybody. Welcome to the No Name Music Cast. My name's Tim, and this is
Joy.
And here at the top of the show, I think Joy has music news, and other things. So Joy, over to you.
So I don't know, and I hate that we're doing this again because it feels like we've done this a few episodes now. 2023 is not being kind to us. David Nash from Crosby, Stills and Nash passed away. I mean, David Crosby from Crosby, Stills and Nash passed away. The Byrds. He passed away today.
Yeah, I just read that just before we started the recording. Yeah. I was like, oh no, not David Crosby. I actually saw Crosby, Stills and Nash.
I got their last names mixed up too.
Well, there's Crosby, Stills and Nash, and there's Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. But I saw Crosby, Stills and Nash. I saw them in Roanoke at the Civic Center when they toured 6 or 7 years ago. Mm-hmm. And I think David Crosby briefly got together with Graham Nash and then toured. And then I think they were feuding. They had like an old man feud. And then they said they wouldn't talk to each other. And they said to David Crosby, well, what's Graham Nash doing? He said, oh, you'll have to ask him. I'm not going to speak about that.
So the sad part about this is when I was kind of looking up, I wanted to talk about something I thought was relatively funny. I was scrolling through an article and it was on David Crosby the other day. And that's what I was going to open the show with tonight. And then I read that and I was like, oh, he passed away. So this is kind of funny. I don't know. Do you follow David Crosby on Twitter, Tim, or did you follow him?
I used to. And he, I mean, it's very sad that we've lost the man. He's a music icon. He's a songwriting icon. He is a icon of that era. I mean, he was at Woodstock, the whole thing. Terribly sad. I mean, the guy is old, or older, should I say. Mm-hmm. And, it's an inevitable thing that's going to happen to everyone. But even still, it's sad when an icon passes. However, I used to follow him on Twitter. But there was a lot of grumpy old man shouting at clouds going on. And after a while, I sort of got, I don't want to say fed up with it, but there was a lot of negativity there. And I thought, well, I'm probably going to pass on this, David Crosby, just saying.
So apparently his Twitter feed is notorious, but there's something he started during the lockdown. So I would our listeners, Tim, if you just want to go peek your head in there and go back to March 2021 or whatever, when everybody, we couldn't move from our houses. Apparently people started sending him a certain kind of cigarette that I'm not going to say on our podcast because it might get us in trouble, pictures. And then he would send back a eloquent critique description of whatever cigarette they sent, like crumpled up, angry, like he would describe it. And it became like his little thing on Twitter. They say they're hilarious if you go back and look at them.
All right. Yeah, I think it was sometime before that I stopped following him.
Maybe the pandemic made him laugh a little more.
Yeah, maybe just a little bit. Yeah, And there was an interview that he did. I used to listen to a podcast called Here's the Thing with Alec Baldwin. Alec Baldwin is a name which has a different thought about it now. It used to be just like 30 Rock and films, but, that has a very much a different meaning now. But he used to have a podcast called Here's the Thing, and he had David Crosby on there. Mm-hmm. And they sort of mentioned about his grumpiness on Twitter. He's like, oh, I'm old. Oh, what do I care?
Classic old man. All right. Well, that was my little news. Sorry to hear he passed. I love the Byrds. For those who don't know, he was in the Byrds originally as well. One of my favorite bands. So I was very sad to hear that. It does say that he was with family when he passed, and it was not unexpected. So I guess he may have had some health conditions that were going on. So that's good to hear. With that being said, go check out his Twitter feed, listen to Grumpy Old Man and him rate people's cigarettes. And they're not regular cigarettes for those who didn't get the quotation marks.
there you go. But, rock in peace, David Crosby. You left behind a massive legacy. But I just hope 2023 isn't the year when we lose lots of rock icons or music icons.
I mean, we ended 2022 not great, and coming into 2023, it's steadily not been too good. I will say one of the saddest yet funniest things is when we went through that time period where we lost like everybody from 81. Remember, like when Glenn Fry and then like all these people just started all passing away at once. Mm-hmm. Santana Lopez, Santana, whatever his last name is.
Carlos Santana.
Yes, that's what I meant to say. Santana Lopez is from Glee. My brain went backwards. For those who don't know, Carlos Santana was trending on Twitter, and I was like, no, it can't be. Turns out it was just a baseball player who had won a game or something that day. So
yeah, we need to get Carlos Santana and wrap him in cotton wool or something. I don't know.
And sorry, Santana Lopez. Sadly, the actress who plays her passed away last year. So I'm glad I brought her up. But anyway, moving along, I have to do one more thing. I think we're going to change this out. This will be the last time I tortured Tim with his least favorite game in the world. But we're going to give a word, and he has to come up with it. And the word, did you hear the wind today? I don't know if you heard how intense the wind was all day.
No, I spent the entire day in my office. I did walk out to Firehouse Subs to buy a submarine sandwich, which I believe is made by firemen.
Of course,
probably.
Maybe.
And it was raining a bit, and my Ghostbusters jacket got a bit wet.
Well,
but I didn't really hear the wind.
So it was super windy today. Like it was like I'm right by the windows that I work. I could just hear it howling all day. So I was like, what would my word be? My word is wind. I was trying to find something that characteristic today.
Well, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is Earth, Wind, and Fire.
That's
the band Earth, Wind, and Fire. And we could go with the song September.
There you go. I was thinking, She's Like the Wind to Me.
Oh, by the guy from Dirty Dancing.
Oh, well, it's not Patrick Swayze, but
yeah, Patrick Swayze. She's Like the Wind.
Oh, did he actually sing that?
Yeah, he had a music career.
Oh, I guess I missed that. Sorry, Patrick. But anyway, that's what I was thinking. That's what I thought of. For some reason, I was thinking Steve Winwood or whatever his name is. It kind of sounds like a song he would sing.
Yeah, Steve Winwood roll with it. I mean, Steve Winwood, Spanish Dancer. That's another great song by Steve Winwood.
And that is a wind. It's got like two wind references at once. I'm trying to think if I think of anything else when I think of wind. No, I think we covered it. All right. Well, I'm pretty sure tonight is Tim's topic, and he has all his research done, so we'll hand it over. Okay.
So this week's topic talks about my personal journey. And that personal journey is music streaming.
Of course.
So I have a journey. I made an announcement. I made a journey, and then the journey ended very abruptly. So let me just explain what happened. Well, first off, Joy, do you use music streaming services?
I have a Spotify, and I also have my YouTube Premium. I listen to both of those. I tend to listen to more Spotify, but yes, occasionally I do.
Yeah, and I think you used to have Google Play Music originally.
See, I uploaded at one point. I made the rookie mistake. Me and Tim had discussed this of my 100 gig, I think it was 160 gig iPod. Yes, back in the day that I won at a basketball game. Everyone, but I uploaded it all to a computer. Whatever year, I don't know, probably 2008, 2009. And I had been taking those MP3s with me since the beginning of time. And I uploaded them all into Google Play Music. And then the Google Play Music shut down, which Tim knows. So now I still have them. And they're kind of like cataloged in my phone in a way with my YouTube music. I don't know how YouTube did that, but it's something to do with Google Play Music. I like transferred over. So yes, I do. But that's the reason why I have the YouTube Premium, but mostly I just use Spotify.
Okay. Well, I had not previously used any of that stuff. I used to use Pandora very occasionally. When Pandora first came out, I liked Pandora. It was very simple. You put a seed track in it and you hit go, and then you did a few thumbs up and you did a few thumbs down, and then you had a beautifully curated radio station, which over time, all your beautifully curated radio stations all sounded exactly the same.
Fair. Okay.
So I had not been anywhere near the streaming music. I have a large library of music on my computer, which I've ripped from CDs or traded drives with people. But, that's my, I would like to call it my life's work. Everything that I've ever had on record, cassette, mini disc, CD, or otherwise is in my library. I've been curating this library since I was 10 years old or something.
And he actually got the first piece of media in this library. He took it off the walls of a cave because Tim is that old. And you guys don't know, he transferred it into his computer.
Exactly. It was an etching in a cave. Yeah. And I just scraped a phonograph needle across it.
That's how this whole journey started.
Exactly. So anyway, so I've had this music library for some time. And I recently got a brand new phone, an iPhone 14 Pro, if anyone is interested, but you're probably not. And it has a lot of space. So I was diligently copying the music from the iTunes library, because that's how you have to do it if you have a PC, onto the phone. Now, unlike Android, where it's relatively easy, drag and drop, it's a folder, stick it in, you're in business. On an iPhone, if you have your own media, it's a whole rigmarole where you have to import it into iTunes, and then you have to drag it over, and then sometimes it doesn't sync, and then you unplug it and you plug it back in again, and you hit sync again, and then you face due north, and then you stand in the corner, and it's a whole thing. So with 512 gig of space, which I got specifically to load my music to, I was getting a little frustrated because it didn't work right. In addition, our listener Megan and I are doing a music challenge where we listen to an album a day, and it comes from the list of 1,001 albums you must listen to before you die. And a lot of this stuff I don't have. Some of it, if you like Google the web enough, you can find it. Or sometimes it's on YouTube. But, you know, I like to have it in my library. But I was coming into a few albums I couldn't find, and it was the phone thing. And I thought, you know what? This is 2023. I'm going to sign up to Apple Music. They keep talking about how it's got everything in it and it's $11 a month. I'm signing up to Apple Music. So I signed up to Apple Music, and I looked through the catalog, and I was surprised. A few of the things I really like were missing. And then sometimes you bring an album up and there's like a track that's grayed out because of copyright reasons. And I thought, well, it's not ideal, but for the convenience of all this, it'll be fine. And they have this thing where everywhere it now streams in super high quality. It's like CD resolution quality. And I thought, this is brilliant. And then I can load it all to my phone. And as you know, driving around here, where we live is reasonably rural. So you don't always have good cell service. Yeah. So you really want to load that stuff directly to your phone. And I thought, this is great. I've got all this space. So I'm going through the things. I'm pressing lossless and I'm downloading the files. And I've maybe got 15 albums on there. And I realized it's gigs and gigs and gigs of storage because these high resolution files are massive. Yep. And I thought, well, this is never going to work. I like having a huge amount of music on my phone. So what I did is I thought, oh, well, I'm sure their standard resolution thing is still going to sound good. So I did some research and cancelled all the downloads, did it in standard resolution, and I went to bed happy and safe knowing that I'd embraced 2023 music distribution. And I was like, yes!
Yay!
So I drive to work the next morning, plug it in my car. I have Apple CarPlay. It's very fancy. It comes up on the screen, voice control, and this kind of stuff. Play my album, drive to work, and it sounded terrible.
Oh, no.
And no, before anyone says, oh, you've got the low resolution setting. No, I had it on the highest setting that wasn't lossless. And it just sounded bad. Like, it just sounded like something I got off Napster in like 1999 or something. It didn't even exist then. But I mean, it sounded bad. So I thought, right, I'm done with this. Scrap that. So I signed up to Spotify. Again, these are all free trials. It didn't cost anything. Yeah, I signed up to Spotify, and I would say the sound quality of that is 7/10 as good as my music library. You can really hear it in the treble frequencies. It didn't. And I like the way it puts playlists together and stuff, and the fact that you build a playlist and it will recommend songs. And they're not all the obvious ones either. It actually recommends album tracks and stuff like that. Yeah. And I played with that for a few days. And again, in the car, I don't have a fancy sound system in my car. It's the one that came with it. But it just didn't sound as good. And then I started going through albums and finding tracks were missing. And I thought, well, I'm going to bail on this. What am I doing? Bail. And I cancelled it. And I'm back to where I was before, struggling to load MP3 files to my phone and scouring around the internet using all manner of search terms to try and find the music for our music challenge. So this is my journey, Joy, from A to B.
There was a C and a D in there, I think, but okay.
Probably.
But so we're just going to have to get Tim like some giant MP3 player and everybody's just going to have to mail him one and then he'll have enough space eventually. He just switches them out on walks.
Well, when I go for my walks, I actually have a SanDisk MP3 player, which I've got, however many gigs the card holds on that, full of great music ready for my walks, and it's all volume leveled and it's all personally handpicked. So that part is fine, but it's more for the phone when I'm at work and when I'm in the car. The work, it doesn't matter because I listen to a little Bluetooth speaker, but in the car, it just sounded bad. And I was like, do I want to go with the quality not being as good and tracks being missing? And I was like, oh, I've gone this long. I'm just going to get involved with my phone and unplug it and replug it and all that kind of business. And it's just going to go on there. And the funny thing about this, because, signing up to any of these services is a monthly cost, $10, $11. And, in our family, Hannah and I, if we make that kind of thing, we always normally discuss it at the kitchen table. We normally say, well, I'm thinking of doing this. And she's thinking of signing up to a new anime streaming thing. It's just thing that we do. We have a little budget meeting. And I told her what I wanted to do. And she's like, yeah, well, that's fine. But she said, you'll hate it.
She knew from a mile away. She was like, why did you even bother to?
Yeah. And then when I told her I'd the next day, I've got Spotify now, she goes, yeah, you'll hate that as well.
Because doesn't Hannah use Spotify? Didn't you say that's the one she prefers?
She used to use Spotify. She had Spotify for the longest time because there's a podcast she really likes, which was a Spotify exclusive.
Oh, I thought you were going to say No Name Music. She better at least give us a download even if she on her Spotify.
Well, she used to have it, and then YouTube started getting completely unwatchable with ads, like absurdly unwatchable.
I had to get premium.
Yeah, we had to get premium. And I said to her, I said, well, why don't you look into, they do a combo deal where you can get YouTube Music and Spotify Premium, and it's not much more than just buying, YouTube Music.
Yeah.
And YouTube, the video thing, together as a package, and it's cheaper if you do it like that rather than just having one of them. And so that's what she did. She canceled Spotify and then she got the combo thing.
See, I just have Spotify free. I don't pay for it, but it's like $19.99. I think is what. I don't know why it sounds like we're advertising however much it costs to get YouTube and YouTube Premium. Like, people need to know how much it is. Simply now, if you combine the end, it's just so you guys know, we are not sponsored by YouTube for this episode. So I'm like telling them, but yeah, it's $19.99. Like, they need to know that.
Well, I mean, you never know. I mean, we have listeners all over the world, and they're local currencies, and it's probably a different price. And
that's funny, Tim. So true story, though, my loving iPod that I had in high school. Well, see, I have an iPod story. So I originally got one of those tiny shuffles that everybody wanted when they first come out, the tiny ones. And then I begged my parents for Christmas. They got me one. Me and my twin sister got me the silver one. I remember I really wanted the rose gold one, but everybody else did too. So anyway, and then me and my twin sister, we went to a basketball game. But Brady, I know you're listening because you listened. I'm sorry. I knew you were mad at me this night. We went to a basketball game and they had a raffle. Well, I was young and poor and didn't have any money to give to the raffle. My twin sister said, okay, I'll buy you a raffle ticket. And then I ended up winning. And it was a 160 gig iPod.
Oh, very nice.
But I felt bad because it was her money and then I ended up winning. She was just like, are you kidding me right now? And I'm like, no, that's my raffle ticket. Bye. So I go down and pick up my prize.
Oh, I've had many iPods over the years and all that kind of stuff. But anyhow, so as we move into the episode, that's my journey. I wanted to explain my journey and how I came to this thing of where I didn't do it. I tried something else. I failed. I went back to the start again.
Fair enough. Okay.
So there we are. But what I wanted to do is, in the realm of streaming music, I wanted to just give some, like a little bit of a brief history of how we got to this point with streaming music. And then what I've got a list of some artists and a little footnote about how they're involved in streaming music or otherwise. Okay. So first off, 1993 is when the MP3 came into existence.
Wow. I wouldn't have thought that.
Yeah, it was someone called the Moving Pictures Expert Group, MPEG. They created the compression algorithm that allows you to compress audio to make it, mostly to the human ear, you can't hear the bits that are taken out, yet makes the file size very small.
Well, that makes sense because they would have had to, so you could be portable and moving around with you. I mean, I've never heard it described like that, but okay.
Yeah, because that's what a compressed music file is that you take, if you have a WAV file, something that's come directly off a CD and it's uncompressed, it's a very large file. But what an MP3 does is it squishes it down so the file is much smaller, but mostly to the human ear, you can't tell that it's been compressed.
And I mean, I knew that, but I never really thought about it the way you explained it. So I really wouldn't have thought 1993 is when the first MP3 was available.
Yeah, well, that's when the standard was invented. Now, of course, you have things like AAC files and OGG files, and then you have FLACs, which are sort of they're compressed non-compressed files. It's all
true
stuff like that. Anyway, MP3 is where it began. And then that went along for a little while. And then what came in the late 90s? Napster.
I was totally using Napster and not the kind you didn't pay for. Continue.
Yeah, I think everybody was using Napster. I mean, people are like, who cares about these musicians? Let's just get all this stuff for free. I remember having Napster on dial-up. Where I was living at the time had a dial-up connection. Yep. And I remember you'd spend all night and you'd get one track.
So I did Napster, did LimeWire, BearShare, did them all. But I definitely had it on dial-up. And I remember the worst feeling, though, Tim, is when you would sit there and watch all the little seeds and you're finally getting your thing through and it's done. And then you go to press play and it's not the song you thought it was going to be.
Yeah, it was mistagged. And the other thing is that towards the end of Napster, I think especially like Metallica and Lars Ulrich in particular didn't want their music on there, and they had a whole anti-Napster thing going on and blah, 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 blah. And then you would get files, like especially Metallica, they were deliberately mistagged because they had a filter on there that would fish them out. And I remember like Metallica would be like metal band, it wasn't Enter Sandman, Enter the Sandman.
Oh, yeah. No, I remember that. And you never quite knew, or like the person who put it up there mislabeled it. Like you would get like something that would say it was Blondie and you'd press play it as the Spice Girls. But what's funny is, Tim, Vice is doing these little mini documentaries. I sent Tim one the other day on Shania Twain. That was pretty cool. Well, there was one on Shaggy. It Wasn't Me, the song. And I found out. So they were refusing to play the song and it wasn't going to be the single. And there's a lot of drama behind it. There was a radio show host in Hawaii who had heard the album and liked it. But whoever his record studio was like, we don't even know where they are. We gave all the albums out when he called and asked if he could have one. And so when they wouldn't give him one, he said, I know this song's going to be popular. He found it on Napster and downloaded the whole album and then played it. And when he played it, he said he played It Wasn't Me, and everything in the studio started lighting up all over the place, people asking who it was. And so that's how he became famous in Hawaii, and then it traveled from there.
Oh, wow. Well, there we go. So it was a success story rather than just like Lars Ulrich trying to sue them. The other interesting thing about Napster, it was one of those things, like you get a lot of technology startups that come up with something which like called a disruptor. Whether it's like Uber or something like that, something that has never existed before and it's never going to make any money and it's going to burn through loads of venture capital. And then the idea is it's out there, everyone starts using it, and then an existing company will buy it. And that's the goal. Yeah. And that's what Sean Fanning, who founded Napster, was planning on doing. He thought, well, I'm going to make this thing. It's never going to make any money. It's going to be a huge disruptor. Everyone's going to use it. And then Warner Brothers or Virgin or someone's going to buy it. And then that'll be the thing. But it didn't work like that. They all started to sue him. That was the problem.
That'd be my luck if I ever tried to do that. Darn.
But there you go. Okay, so that went on for a while. And then in 2001, October the 23rd, 2001, the iPod came out.
I still remember. Do you remember like when you had to, if you tried to upload your own, or you tried to like take music from iTunes, how it would be like, it would have that little lock on it?
Yeah, so that is we'll come to that in a second. That was when
I skipped ahead. Sorry, guys.
Yeah. Well, like I say, that's in 2003. That's when the iTunes store was launched, because originally you would just rip CDs yourselves into your computer and then you'd put it on your iPod. Now, originally the iPod was a Mac only item, and then after a while they decided to make it a Windows thing as well, so everyone could have one.
Yeah.
But in 2003, they came out with the iTunes store. So you could buy tracks from there. You could buy individual tracks from there if you wanted to. And then you could burn your own CDs. But that was 2003. But when it first came out, they had DRM on them, digital rights management. And you're quite correct that if you was signed in, you could get those tracks. But if you send them to somebody else and they tried to play them, they'd have a little lock beside them and you couldn't use them.
But there was a way around it, Tim. Did you know the way around it?
Yeah, you burn them onto a CD, then rip them back in.
I found my way around it because what happened is when I wanted to get rid of my iPod, I wanted to take some of that music I had bought, and they tried to hold me hostage. I did not allow them to do it.
Exactly. There was also a freeware tool at the time that allowed you to do it. You signed in with your Apple credentials and it stripped the DRM off it. I think that's how I did it because I didn't buy a lot from there, but there was a few albums I remember buying that I really enjoyed. And as I wanted to make sure my whole library was just MP3s because it's easier to manage, I used a little freeware tool and boom, DRM was gone.
I don't know what you're talking about, Tim. I would never. Anyway.
But there we go. Okay, so in 2005, Pandora comes out.
And it opened Pandora's box.
Now, as I said, I'd used Pandora. Is that something that you'd ever used?
Yeah, I used it when it first came out because it was like the big one for 5 minutes. I think I didn't. I got tired of all the ones sometimes where they do an auto-curated list because they always have the same songs on repeat at some point. So I always I liked it, but then I realized I was listening to the same 30 songs over and over again at some point.
Yeah, I always felt that Pandora was a missed opportunity in some ways because, like I said, you could put a seed track in it and then it would go off and make a personal radio station for you. But it always picked the obvious hits, and there's no way of telling it to say play less obvious hits.
And now, in Google Play Music and different things like that, you could thumb something up, you could thumbs it down, you know what I mean, to kind of help with that. But when Pandora started, you didn't have any of that.
Yeah, and I had hundreds of Pandora stations, all with different seed tracks in them, and you could add additional seed artists. But over time, with thumbs up and thumbs down, every one of those stations just sounds identical.
That's true. That's kind of why I like to make my own playlists, but that's just my personal opinion. I start to get tired of the same ones. And I like how on YouTube Music, you thumbs it up, and there'll be a whole playlist of everything you've ever thumbed, which sounds good until Tim's saying, and then you realize you've listened to the same playlist with the same 400 songs you've thumbs up.
Exactly. I mean, it might sound ridiculous, but I'm very new to the world of playlists because I mostly listen to albums in their entirety, and that's how I like to enjoy music. Because, being a CD collector, being a physical music collector, you put your compact disc on, and typically you can listen to it from top to tail. The idea of actually making a playlist is reasonably new to me.
See, and I think that because of my age that I was into whenever burning CDs was huge, and you burned it for your friends, you burned it for yourself. I was, right around the teenage age. So for me, a playlist is what I used to do when I'd burn CDs. And I remember though, whenever I first started burning CDs, I'd only burned a few of them. You have to be careful because if you leave that CD in your CD player, in your car, every time you turn your car on, you hear the same song for the next 6 weeks. And mine was the Kinks. Oh, I can't remember which song it was, but I just remember the Kinks would play every time I turned my car on when I was 16 years old for a year because I was too lazy to change the CD out. And so that's all I heard.
Can I tell you one thing? Can I tell you a sad tale, Joy?
What's that?
No one ever made me a mixtape.
Oh,
I've never had a mixtape made for me. Mixed cassette or mixed CD or mixed mini disc or anything.
Well, if you're a personal friend of Tim and he has a birthday or Christmas coming up, make him a mixtape. I sent one to Charlie when we first started dating in the mail, and he sent one back. And I remember his had part of the Donnie Darko soundtrack on it, different pieces from it that he liked.
Well, that's cool. Yeah, that never happened to me.
Darn, Tim.
Okay, well, let's bring this round. Let's go up from here. So in 2008, what came out? It was Spotify.
Good old Spotify.
And as we know, Spotify is what they call a freemium model, where you can pay for premium and it takes the ads away and it lets you do more skips and that kind of stuff. Or there's a free version of it, which is loaded with ads. And I think you can only play it in shuffle, I think.
Yeah, that one's, I think it's only shuffle too, because that's what I have.
Exactly. But yeah, that came out. I remember when it came out in the UK, and then I think it's a Swedish company, came out in Sweden, then the UK, and then it was like Australia, and then it was somewhere else in Asia. And I think the United States was towards the end of that. It wasn't at the very beginning, because I remember I just moved here in 2011 and they were talking about Spotify launching in the United States.
So, darn, I was going to say something, but it's gone. Did you remember any? Okay, this is very niche and it's very specific, but do you remember Grooveshark?
The name rings a bell. Is that a streaming thing as well?
It kind of was, but it was cool because you could make your own radio station. So I had my own radio station where I would play, like, I could talk to people and play a playlist through it. And it was super cool. And it only lasted before people shut it down because, you know, that's copyright and all kinds of stuff for like 5 minutes. But I loved Grooveshark. It was very sad when it disappeared because I had my own radio station and I had listeners and I talked to those listeners on my radio station and played music.
Well, that's pretty cool. And look at this, Joy. A number of years later, you effectively have your own radio station and you talk to people and we have listeners. There we are. See,
full circle.
Everything comes around.
Anyway, I was just curious if you remembered it, but it's very niche.
Yeah, it rings a bell. The name does ring a bell.
Well, if anybody was a Grooveshark listener back in the day, doubt you are. I have not forgotten about you.
There we are. Fantastic. All right. So let's wrap this history up, which is where my journey began, is in 2015, Apple Music came out. Now, of course, now you've got Amazon Music, you've got Tidal, there's several, all pretty much similar kind of thing, $10 a month, millions of tracks, yada, yada. But the two big players really are Spotify and Apple, and maybe Amazon as well. Yeah,
I can agree with that.
Okay, so just before we get into the actual list of music that I wanted to talk about, this is why musicians hate the streaming model, because you can have thousands, if not millions, of streams, and musicians are not really making any money out of it. So we're just using the model of Spotify. So each stream, each time a song is played, and I think you have to play 1 minute of the song or something like that. There's a certain, or a percentage of the song has to be played before it's considered a stream. And it says Spotify pays artists between 0.003 cents and 0.005 cents per stream on average. And also bearing in mind, it's a 70-30 split from that. 70% of it goes to the artists and the rights holders, and 30% of it goes to Spotify. So even that payout, Spotify is taking a cut out of that.
Well, you know, I'm really excited to get my 70% of 30 cents. Yay, me.
Yeah, there was something like, it was Queen said that, the blah, blah, blah has now had 1 million, 2 million, billion streams. And everyone was just coming back. Yeah, how much did you make out of that? $50?
It's true, though. That's why they're stupid. Concert tickets are so expensive now. It's the only way they make money.
Well, that's true. The whole model has changed. It used to be the concerts were almost a loss leader to sell records, and now it's the other way around. The records are the loss leader or the music is the loss leader to sell concert tickets.
And now you have to pay 3 arms and a leg and your kidney to go see whoever.
I would see a lot more concerts. I mean, especially like for us, we have to drive to Greensboro to see big bands we may have mentioned before, but you know, whereas previously, a number of years ago, if the ticket was $30, $40 dollars a pop, it's still a chunk of money, but you think, that's fine. But now, like, you want to go and see, when I saw Paul McCartney, the tickets were 200 and something. It's ridiculous.
And I've like, there's been 3 or 4 concerts I've been like, I want to, and I start, oh, nope, not today. And I just put my finger right back down. Because the other thing is, and Tim's right, either we travel 3-4 hours there, see the concert, and then travel back 3-4 hours through the night, right? Or you have to get a hotel and stay the night. And so then that's also a factor for those of us who have to travel to get anywhere to see a concert.
Exactly. Well, there we are. Anyhow, so let's move on to the music itself. So I've got some tracks here, and they all have a streaming story that's attached to them. So the first one I'm going to start with is Garth Brooks. Now, I'm not going to go with an obvious Garth Brooks track. I'm going to go with, he did a cover of Hard Luck Woman. Which is from a album called Kiss My Ass, which is a classic Kiss cover album. And the story about Garth Brooks, we can speak about the tracks, but the story about Garth Brooks is that he, for the longest time, would have nothing to do with streaming, but he cut an exclusive deal with Amazon. So you have to have Amazon Music if you want to listen to Garth Brooks.
Yeah, and I went down that rabbit hole before. You can find, so here's an example of this. On YouTube, Friends in Low Places is one of my favorite songs by him. There is only one video. You have to find, if you try to find his song, Friends in Low Places on YouTube, there's one video that's actually him. That for some reason, that one never gets taken down. But there are about 14 of those generic, the whatever. You don't talk about, Tim, we talk about like the fake bands that do different songs.
Yeah.
And so you have to click, they'll say they're labeled, they're Garth Brooks. And you'll be like, but it's actually like the Blue Green Boys or something, you know what I mean? And you click it and you'll be like, that's not Garth Brooks. Then you click it, it takes, you have to find, I have the right one saved, but there are so many of those on there because it's so hard to find his music because it's all the rights are with Amazon.
Yeah, I was interested to find out about his days as Chris Gaines. And I think there's one official music video of Chris Gaines up there, but like his Saturday Night Live appearance. And I think he appeared on some other TV show around that time in character as Chris Gaines. It's just, you cannot get it. The minute it hits YouTube, it gets pulled.
That's funny. Charlie bought, my husband, for those who don't know, bought a Chris Gaines album, Tim. Because his boss, let me restate this, not his boss, the owner of his company's name is Chris Gaines. And he came home the first day of work and said to me what the name of his boss was. And I went, your boss is Garth Brooks? And he was like, what? And then I had to go down the rabbit hole. But he loved the Chris Gaines albums and finds them amazing. So there you go.
There we are. As I may have said before, I have a Chris Gaines album, Chris Gaines' greatest hits. It's
I think that's what Charlie got.
Yeah, I think that's the only one you can get now, but
he's excited about
fabulous. There's actually some good songs on there.
Well, it's very dramatic, and as I have stated, he has an air for the drama. So, but it was just funny. We went, but this is my boss, and I was like, the guy who owns your company is Garth Brooks. That's all I could think, because that's what my brain went to. Anyway.
Fabulous. Okay, well, let's move on to this next track. This is from 1989. This is De La Soul, and it's the song Say No Go, which does have a sample of Hall & Oates on it. And the way it pertains to streaming is that until recently, you could not get De La Soul on any streaming service. It's because they used a lot of samples in their music, and getting the clearance to press records up is different for clearance for streaming, apparently. So it was very hard to get all the rights holders involved and approve having this out here on streaming services. Now, some of the very early De La Soul stuff has started to hit the streaming platforms. But as far as I know, the album 3 Feet High and Rising is not available. I could be wrong. It could have changed since I did my research. But for an act like that, sort of a hip hop act from sort of the 80s, early 90s, that was so influential to so many people, you just could not get it.
So here's a weird question then. If they're having problems with that song and the different pieces that were copyrighted and things like that and getting approval, so to get something as a single, like on the radio, right, you would have to have copyright approved, I would imagine. So is it a different set? Is there different rules of copyright when it comes to streaming, I'm guessing then?
I think it's different completely, because I remember, I don't know about so much copyright, but Def Leppard wanted to put their stuff up on streaming, and they couldn't do it because they didn't hold the rights to it. They held the rights to making physical product and performing it, obviously, and the songwriting, but the deal that struck with the record company and the streaming services is different and blah, 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 blah. And they even went into the studio and recut all their big hits, like, Pour Some Sugar on Me and Hysteria. And they did like a note for note recreation of those songs so they could publish it themselves on streaming services and start and get some of this revenue coming in.
Well, I do know that you're probably onto something, because one of the big things, you remember, like the Beatles and Michael Jackson, and they bought each other's music and blah, 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 that whole story we've said a million times on here. When Michael Jackson passed away is when you started getting all the Beatles songs available. And then they did that Beatles rock band and stuff like that. So when he passed away, a lot of the rights he had to their music, I guess, became available for people to do stuff with.
Yeah, I think Paul bought them. I think from the Michael Jackson estate, I think Paul actually went ahead and bought them. But for us, you buy an album and then you burn a copy of it, or you do what you want with it, and you don't even think about it. But from a rights holder's perspective, when you have songwriters, producers, everyone that's involved with it along the way, the record company's taking a cut, and there's a lot of
even the artwork that's in the album cover.
There's a lot of mechanics going on in the background, and it's not as straightforward as you think. I mean, like if you self-publish, like the Frequency album, as we said before, which I played on, is available now on all the streaming services. Yeah. And it was just a question of Ian just emailing everyone in the band who was still with us saying, hey, you cool with this? And we're like, yeah, it's fine. And then he just published it to TuneCore, and bonk, and there you go, it's done. You paid £10 or whatever. I forget what it was, but there was an amount of money you paid to have it published, and there it is. But of course, when you're dealing with all the mechanics of a record deal, and everyone has some kind of input on this, it's just not as simple.
Well, what's interesting about you saying that, do you know with writers, how like a lot of people get published on Amazon now? It's basically what you just said. There's some version of TuneCore that goes up and puts their book online, and they pay a certain amount, and then it's published on Amazon. Mm-hmm. And so that's why most people are publishing their books on Amazon before they go anywhere else, because you don't have to go through a publisher and editors and blah, blah, blah. It's just self-published and it's gone.
Exactly. The only thing is that, of course, you don't have the reach. If you go through a publisher.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's always a downside to it. It probably lets a lot of lower quality things out into the market, too. You know what I mean? It is what it is, but I just know that's what people do on Amazon now.
Exactly. It's exactly the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So this next track I'm going to talk about is Joni Mitchell. This is from 1971. From her album Blue, and this is the classic song California. And the reason that this pertains to streaming, because she decided that she was going to pull all of her content from Spotify. Mm-hmm. She didn't like a particular podcast that was broadcast on Spotify, which was a Spotify exclusive, and she didn't like the content of that podcast, and she felt that information that was on there was misinformation that was being spread. So as a response to that, she pulled all of her music off of Spotify.
What song do you want to talk about from her? Did I hear a song or did I miss it?
Yeah, the song I was going to talk about was California.
Oh, one of her most famous hits.
Absolutely.
I haven't heard that song in a long time, but I feel like it's very big radio banter. It's one of those songs that also always seem to make it into movies and TV shows.
Yeah, I mean, we've spoken about Big Yellow Taxi, often. That's why I picked California. But yes, this is one of these songs that is iconically Joni Mitchell. And as you say, it's appeared in commercials. It's appeared in TV shows, films, you name it. It's one of those ones that's part of the culture at this point. Well,
and she has a very, what's the word I'm looking for? There's an essence to her music. There's a feeling. There's a very distinct, I don't know what you want to say. I don't want to say genre because that sounds weird, but her music is very distinctly her. And so if you're trying to convey a message of whatever that song is, she's a great artist to use. So I can see why movie, TV, everything would gravitate towards her, right? To create whatever kind of feeling they're thinking. And it was only because of Tim that I learned Joni Mitchell is Canadian. I didn't know that.
Yeah, there you go, see.
I didn't know that until you told me that. And I thought you brought her up on your Canada episode.
Absolutely, yeah, because when I was preparing my stellar Canadian music playlist for my trip, yes, Joni Mitchell.
Well, I mean, I would have never known she was Canadian, Tim. So when I win Jeopardy one day, I'll give you some winnings or something. I don't know.
Well, thank you, Joy. I appreciate you.
Fair enough. All right, what's your next one?
Okay, so this is a song which everyone's heard 1,000 times or 1,000,000 times. This is the Beatles from Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. And I've actually gone with the track Being for the Benefit of Mr. Kite. I've gone a little bit out of the box. And the reason I bring this one up, for the longest time, the Beatles were not available on streaming services.
Yeah.
There was a big to-do when it became available in the iTunes store. But on streaming, they were not available. Their record company, Apple Corps.
And that's what I thought was happening with the whole Michael Jackson thing. I swear once Michael Jackson passed away, some of their music started popping up more. But maybe it was just a convenience of time. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, this was when was it? It was Christmas Eve 2015. And that was when the Beatles' music was available on streaming services.
And wasn't it April when Michael Jackson passed away? What year was it?
No, Michael Jackson passed away before I moved here. So it was 2010, 2009, 2010, something like that.
Well, then I'm way off, everybody. Maybe I just made that all up in my head. I don't know. It just felt like all these different things that the Beatles started popping up after he passed away. I always wondered if it was the music rights, but apparently Tim is confirming maybe not so much.
No, I just think it's the Beatles. I don't even know if it's Ringo and Paul at this point, but the people behind the Beatles brand, which it is now basically is a brand, were very protective of the Beatles, and they didn't want to sort of launch it to something that may not be a thing.
I mean, that makes sense, and I get it. I see what you're saying. I don't know why though. That's just what my brain kind of correlated it with. So. Yeah.
But no, that was a big thing when the Beatles became on streaming services.
All their music still on Apple then? Like
their record label is Apple Core.
Yeah.
But that's nothing to do with Apple computers or Apple iPhones.
Good clarification. That's not what I meant. I meant like Apple Core, the radios, their producing station or whatever.
Yeah, their record label, Apple Core.
I don't know why it was so hard for me to find record label in my brain. I'm like producing station, that people.
It's probably been a long day for you, Joy. I know you had a hard day in your office yesterday, so it's fair enough. We're all friends here.
I worry about my brain sometimes, but anyway.
Okay, let's move on to another track that pertains to the world of music streaming. So this is Pink Floyd from 1973 from Dark Side of the Moon, and the song is Great Gig in the Sky. Now, the reason, again, I've picked this one out, these were another band which held out for a long time in the realm of streaming. They wanted to make sure that it was a proper thing before getting involved with it. And, they've often been very protective of their music. And you rarely see Pink Floyd music in a TV commercial or a film or something. It's very rare.
I mean, I thought that they had a lot of copyright issues.
I don't think so. I mean, there's always the tension between Roger Waters and David Gilmour. But I think they're just very productive, very protective of the music that they've made. And in fact, they held out with the streaming thing until 2013.
I always thought I'd heard that. Maybe it's just a YouTube rabbit hole, but I thought there was some issues with their stuff going on. Or maybe that's just what people thought. But Pink Floyd is one of those bands that I think you need to listen to the whole album anyway to get the whole picture.
Sure. And initially, when they were not very happy about their music being allowed to be sold on the iTunes music store, because exactly for that reason, because they feel that their albums are the article. But extracting a track out of it doesn't give the full experience that they were going for.
Yeah, that's true. And that's what I've always thought. Like, you need to listen from the beginning to the end, because they're kind of like, we talked a little bit about this with Brian May and some of his albums and different things like that. Or like we talked about with the Flash Gordon soundtrack, different things like that. You have to listen from the beginning to the end. And that's really what you get the best experience from Pink Floyd. We have a bunch of it on vinyl. That's just because my husband went on eBay and found it cheap before vinyl became an arm and a leg. And you really, that's how we listen to it. You start the vinyl, you go from the beginning, and you go all the way through. Exactly,
which is how I like to listen to music, but on compact disc, because I'm The world began in 1982 for me, you know.
Well, to be fair, this was pre everybody, now every hipster with that's on the internet is obsessed with vinyl. And so this was pre it going, what was $10 is now $45 and you can buy it at Walmart type thing.
Yeah, I mean, what's happening with vinyl? I mean, things are going up in price. That's a thing. But the vinyl thing, I mean, you can't get a record now for less than 30, 40, 50 sometimes. I mean, goodness me. I'm
going to sound like I'm 1,000 years old and was getting this from a cave in a minute. But here's the deal. It's the same thing with clothes. They say all things come full circle, right? Yeah. Vinyl went from non-existent, because I remember we even had a record player in my house with my parents. We never used it. Not once. When I was a kid, it was there, but nobody used it. You didn't even think about it when I was a kid because of my age. But then there was like this insurgence. I think it's the internet. I think it's everybody being obsessed with nostalgic old cultures, and vinyl became the way to go again. And when, the demand's there, the price goes up. But it's the same thing with clothes. I went to 3 or 4 different stores this weekend with my friend Molly. And I swear to you, Tim, every piece of clothing made me feel like I was 11 years old again. Because every piece of clothing was the exact stuff that was popular when I was like 2000, from maybe 1997 to 2003. It has all came back in style, and it's crazy. And like, there was 2 TikToks where this girl was like, "Oh my God, have you guys seen these? It's jeans with a skirt under," or it was like a skirt. I'm sorry. Jean shorts with a skirt over it. And she's like, "Do you guys see it? It's got shorts underneath it." We're like, she doesn't even know what a skirt is. How old am I? Like, every piece of clothing now is the exact same thing I wore when I was 11. And so I think that's just full cycle with the vinyl, the exact same thing.
All I would say is that since 82, the CD has never gone out of style. And blue Levi jeans and a black T-shirt has never gone out of style either. Just saying. But
you can add a Ghostbusters jacket for effect.
Exactly. Just wear your Ghostbusters jacket with pride. I'm thinking about with the Ghostbusters jacket. I get a lot of attention wearing that Ghostbusters jacket. It seems to be wherever I go, people go, "Oh, cool jacket, man." I was like, "Oh, who are you going to call?" That kind of stuff. And I like wearing it because I think it's cool, but I don't know if it's going to get old.
It might. Because I have something that's very similar to that. I bought, and you guys, this is going to sound weird. I have we talked about my $75 SpongeBob bag. Well, when I wear it, and people who love SpongeBob, they're always like, "Oh my God, I love your bag." And I'm always like, "Great, thanks." It started to get old.
Yeah, I got a very nice leather jacket that I've had for decades. And I chose this year not to wear it for winter because I'm into my Ghostbusters jacket. But I don't know. I'm currently not minding the attention. But if it gets really, really old, I might put it aside just for a little bit. I don't know.
Just put it into retirement and then bring it back out when you feel like it.
There we go. Well, they are coming out with another Ghostbusters film this year. I don't know if you knew that.
I don't think I did, actually.
Yeah, it's a follow-on from Ghostbusters Afterlife. It's like the new, younger Ghostbusters, and Ernie Hudson, who was in the original Ghostbusters. And there's a scene at the end of the last film they made, and he's stroking the Ecto-1 guys. "Oh, don't worry, old girl. We're going to go back out there and get it done," or something like that. And that's what's going to happen. I'm sure they can't get Bill Murray and they can't get Dan Aykroyd, so they get Ernie Hudson instead.
And you probably won't see Tim O'Sullivan going to watch that one in theater.
Well, that's the thing with the Ghostbusters jacket. I think I may go and see it. I really enjoyed that last film, so I may go to the theater, and I may wear my jacket to go. I don't know.
When is it supposed to come out?
I don't know. It's later on this year, but I saw a date, but I can't remember. It's later
Probably
on.
Summer or something.
Something like that. Perfect in the summer when it's 100 degrees and I can wear a Dickies jacket in the cinema. It'd be perfect.
Well, to be fair, every time I go to the movie theater, it's always really cold. So
that's true, because that's the thing, isn't it? Because like when it's baking hot outside, they crank the air conditioning like you wouldn't believe, and you're sitting there literally freezing cold.
You are the entire movie, so your jacket will go in handy.
I didn't think of that, Joy. You've solved this for me already.
Fair enough. All right. And what is our next person?
Okay, so this is a song which is fabulous in every way. And it's getting to the point I never want to hear it again, which is Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody from 1975 from A Night at the Opera. And the relevance to streaming for this one, this has had 2.025 billion streams on Spotify.
See, and this is a song that has, I feel like, some of the clothing and the vinyl has went full circle. It has got, in the last maybe 5 years, there has been an insurgence, probably the movie being named after it. Me and Tim have talked about and different things like that like people, but I am with Tim. It ranks up there with Piano Man for me. Everybody wants to sing it. Everybody loves it. I get it, but I don't want to hear it again. But in its defense of this song, one of my very first memories of Queen is whenever it used to play on pop-up music video on VH1, and my mom would have it on, and it would be, the famous music video with their heads and the operatic type thing going on. And as a kid, I thought that was super cool.
Was it the original music video version, or was it the version that's taken from? There's a Wayne's World version of that video. It's
the original, but I'm thinking of when I was a kid.
Okay,
I'm pretty sure. Was that the one where their different heads are coming through and it's dark around them?
Yeah, absolutely. It's really just a basic performance video, but it does have the iconic head thing. Mm-hmm. And in fact, this is an audio podcast, but I have a poster on my wall, which is exactly that.
Yeah. Yeah, and that for me, though, was very iconic. And you have to think about, with my age, we're talking early 90s here. This was my first experience with Queen. Now I've heard their whole catalog, talked about it 1,000 times with Tim, everything. But it was a very distinct video, and then the song was unique in its right at that time.
Exactly. I mean, there is much better songs on A Night at the Opera than Bohemian Rhapsody. I think the Prophet song is a much better song than Bohemian Rhapsody, but that's probably because I've just been so overexposed to Bohemian Rhapsody at this point.
Well, and there's been 1,000 other artists who've covered it now, and no offense, but no one should cover it. It's never as good.
No, you cannot do it any justice. I mean, I'd be happy to listen to someone else doing Tie Your Mother Down or Kill a Queen or something, but Bohemian Rhapsody is that's like on the mountaintop of rock. You just don't go up there.
There we go. I agree with you on that one, Tim. And it seems to be a favorite. It's a fan favorite. Everybody wants to sing in the audience too. So I get it.
Exactly. Okay. All right. Well, let's move on to another song. So this is from Crosby, Stills and Nash. And, very sadly, as we heard at the top of the episode, we lost David Crosby today. They said he's an older gentleman, but still very sad that we lost him today. And this is a track I've picked out. It's from 1969, and this is the Marrakesh Express. And the reason I picked out Crosby, Stills and Nash, much like Joni Mitchell, they decided to pull their music from Spotify because they were not happy about a podcast that was being broadcast there.
There was quite a few artists, I think, who pulled whenever that whole thing went down with Spotify.
Yeah, also Neil Young. And in fact, I was going to come on to talk to Needle and the Damage Done from 77. He was another one. It seemed to be everyone that was around that. Crosby, Stills and Nash, Joni Mitchell, Neil Young, all in the sort of the same camp of music, and I'm sure that they were all communicating somehow. They all pulled their music at the same time.
I mean, good for them because they stood up for what they believed. But with that being said, what album is this song on, Tim? I was trying to identify it.
Marrakesh Express, for me, it's on a compilation called CSN. And it's like disc one of that. I'm not sure which actual album it comes from itself.
I love how he said that, like, well, here's how I know it, but there you go. Yeah, I don't know that I know that song that well.
It's a cool track. Yeah, maybe after the record finishes, you should go and check out the Marrakesh Express.
Fair enough. All right, I will make a note. Tim will see me take my little pen out as he laughs when I actually take a note.
Well, there we go. All right, well, let's move on to another track. This one is from a band. I don't think have we ever spoken of Oasis on here before?
On that Brit Pop episode I did. Well, we talked about Top of the Pops, but that was the extent, not something we went into detail about.
Yeah, not a band that I really listened to a lot, to be perfectly honest with you, Oasis. I didn't enjoy it when it came out particularly. And, the Sands of Time have passed. There's some good songs there. I mean, Champagne Supernova is a track that I really enjoy.
That's what I was going to say. I love a good Champagne Supernova.
I mean, I pulled out the classic Wonderwall, which every would-be guitar player has played in a guitar shop at this point. It's replaced Stairway, I think, as the guitar shop audition song.
It also is the song that every DJ has to play at some point during the night.
Exactly. Well, it's been out since 95, so I mean, it's been out there for a while, so I'm sure that's why it's being played to death. It's from the album What's the Story, Morning Glory. And the reason I picked it out is on Spotify. This has had 1.55 billion streams.
Wow. That's a lot of streams. Well, I mean, it's a song that, like we said, everybody knows, so I guess it makes sense. And I feel like it's always kind of crunched somewheres before they get to Semi Summit closing time when the alcohol is real high because everybody wants to sing it. Kind of like I was saying Bohemian Rhapsody and Piano Man. It's one of those ones everybody wants to sing. Sweet Caroline up there, too.
Yeah, I'm trying to think how I must have played it in a band at some point. I've played Champagne Supernova, but I don't know if I've ever knowingly played Wonderwall.
Tim just made it up as he went. The chords are pretty easy. He figured it out. He didn't even know what he was playing. I would think you would have had to play it at some point.
I mean, it's not terribly difficult to play. I think it has a capo at the second fret, I think. Or for our UK listeners, that'd be a capo.
Is that really true? Is that really how they say it?
That's correct. And in fact, when we was doing our Freak Jan Zooms and I mentioned capo, they're like, no, he's changed. What happened to him?
He's been taken over. I mean, to be fair, he still has his calendar set to Monday as the beginning of the week.
I will not budge on that. Monday is the beginning of the week. The week does not start on a Sunday. It starts on a Monday. Sunday night is the last day of the weekend, and then you start your week again on a Monday.
I mean, that really is how we live, so I don't know why our calendars in America are different.
Yeah, and like every time I get a new computer, a new phone, a new tablet device or whatever, the first thing I do is go into the calendar settings and make it start on a Monday. I see it doesn't. Where does that come from?
I don't know. I'm assuming it's something to do with, I hate to say this, maybe religion in America, maybe?
Or even then, I mean, in some religions, Sunday is traditionally the day of rest. So you wouldn't start your week on a Sunday because that's I don't know.
Well, let's give it a Google on air. Here we go. Live Google. Why in America does the calendar start on Sunday? Somebody's asked it.
Okay. Well, what does it say?
The Georgian calendar, currently used in most countries, is derived from the Hebrew calendar, where Sunday is considered the beginning of the week. Although in Judaism, the Sabbath is on Saturday, while in Christianity is Sunday. Sunday is considered the beginning of the week in both religious traditions. So I was right. It was about religion in some way.
Yeah, well, I completely misinterpreted that then.
Well, I mean, I was thinking maybe like a day of rest to start your week off easy. I don't know. That's what I was thinking. But
yeah, I don't know. But anyhow, I will have no part of that. The week starts on a Monday, and that's a non-negotiable topic.
Well, even if he says capo like us now, we can't get him to change the weeks.
I tell you, I'll say one thing though: the expression "mobile phone" has completely gone out of my brain. I just say cell phone now because I manage a fleet of cell phones at work. And saying, I thought maybe I said it at the beginning and nobody really knew what I was talking about. And I changed to cell phone, and that is now bonk, perfect.
It's never leaving. What was it also? Tim said he never really understood metrics even when he lived in the UK, if I remember right.
No, metric is fine. It's imperial measurements. And in fact, I put on the Twitter and Facebook the other day, and I'm joking to some extent. I stand by this. I cannot fathom out fluid ounces. And yes, I know it's a measurement for liquids. I mean, I understand that. But if you go into a gas station or petrol station and you buy a large drink and it says it's 22 ounces, it's like, what is that? Is that a bucket or a teacup? I just can't visualize it.
That's so funny to me because that's the one I can, but I think it's because I've cooked. Tim does not cook, everyone. Hot take, you'll never see Tim in a kitchen. I think the closest he's gotten is using the microwave. So
can I just exclusively reveal to our listeners over Christmas, I used the ring things on the top to make gravy.
What? The eyes.
Is that what they're called? The eyes?
Yes,
the
the stovetop eyes. That's what we call them in America. I don't know what they're called in the UK.
Yeah, I used that at Christmas because I wanted gravy. We had a big Christmas dinner and it was delicious. And then we was in the leftovers. And I had the leftovers. I was microwaving the leftovers. And then I said to Hannah, can I have some gravy? And she said, yeah, if you make it.
And so you did it.
I did. I put a cup of water in and the packet, and then I stirred it.
You just did the powdered gravy. I'm proud of you, Tim. Look at you. Well, I stand corrected, everyone. Tim has touched a stove once. Gosh. But what I was going to say is I think I understand ounces because ounces, like on the measuring cup, I've seen it enough that my brain kind of registers it.
Yeah, if you say I had a drink, it's 200 milliliters. I know how much that's going to be, 500, a liter, 2 liters. It just, in my brain, that makes sense. But 22 and a half fluid ounces, who knows? I
still can't figure out why we just don't go to metric. But it's a debate for another time. I feel like we're so far, we've refused to do it for so long that if we gave it... The United States will never adopt the metric system. That will never, ever happen. It's just like, nope, we're going for yards, and that's all we're going to do.
And the thing is, like, even our imperial measurements here are different to UK imperial measurements. The pint is a different size to the UK pint. The US gallon is different size to the UK gallon. I mean, what is going on with this stuff?
I mean, I don't know, Tim. We'll write out of the official committee who's over the standard measurement people of the world.
the standard measurement committee. I mean, I envy countries that went metric and stayed metric, like Canada and like Europe and stuff, and Australia. It's like you've got your metric, just it's fine. Everything is base 10 and base 100. Perfect. Thank you. Forever.
And the thing that gets me is with temperatures. I mean, in the UK, freezing is 0, whereas here there's a 32-degree difference. So for those who don't know, that's not an exact. It's like 32 point blah 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 blah. Right? If you Google it, you can figure out what the amount is. But if it's freezing in the UK, it's 0. If it's freezing in America, it's 32, 33, whatever. Give or take a few decimal points. And so every time, like when people talk about temperatures, it makes more sense that 0 would be freezing.
Sure.
But on the flip side, when they start talking about, it's this temperature Celsius, and they're like, that's so hot. That doesn't seem warm to me because I'm used to being like, it's 104. Everybody run. Because that seems really hot. So it's kind of like a catch-22.
Yeah, I don't know. World leaders, just get together and adopt the metric system for goodness sake, and let's just move on.
Anyway. Yeah, because what was it? Me and Tim were like, it's 104. And everybody in the UK on one of the Zooms looked at us like, what?
Yeah, what does that mean? Are you putting extra blankets on? I mean, what's going on here?
Anyway. All right. What's your next song, Tim?
Okay. Well, I'm going to close out with this song.
Okay.
And this is from Ed Sheeran, an artist we have probably never, ever spoken of on this podcast.
That is probably very true.
From 2014, his song Thinking Out Loud. I'm mentioning it because he has had 2.1 billion streams on YouTube, on Spotify.
And he is one of those artists that seems to transcend ages. My mom likes him. You know what I mean? So it doesn't surprise me. He also I only recently found out he's wrote a bunch of music for other artists. He's done, I knew there's plenty of people who've done that. We've talked about Prince. We talked about Bruno Mars, Pharrell Williams. So just the names that come to mind and so on and so forth. But I did not know Ed Sheeran had wrote a bunch of music for other artists too.
I did not know that. I'd never heard of Ed Sheeran until the last band I was in, I used to run the disco and people started asking for this song, Thinking Out Loud. That's the first time I'd ever heard it.
Well, he writes his own music. He plays his own instruments. I'll give him that. So, but yeah, that doesn't surprise me. The Thinking of That Shape of You song is also really popular by him for like 5 minutes. I'm not a huge Ed Sheeran fan, but I would say in the pop world, he's the male equivalent to what kind of Taylor Swift's status is right now. Taylor Swift seems to be dominating the world, even though, I mean, you don't personally listen to her. That would be Ed Sheeran.
Okay. Well, there we go. They said neither artist I've got anything against. I wish them nothing at the best. I don't hate them. Mm-hmm. It's maybe just not music I would necessarily listen to. No,
and I don't mean it like that. I was just saying he's not really my taste. I do know he grew up in something called Framlingham, Suffolk or something. He's in the UK. Yeah, it's like Framlingham, though. It's like Farmling, and then like Ham, Ham.
Framlingham?
Yeah, Suffolk or something. Unless that I made that up. I don't know. That's what I thought he was from.
Could be. I don't know.
Watch that not even be a city and someone's just screaming at me going, what are you talking about? I thought I heard that, okay? I thought when he said it in an interview, that's where he was from. Tim's like, fine, okay. He's not from Hounslow, so Tim does not know.
There we are, see. He's not even from Bedfont. He's not even from Isleworth. He's not even from Heston.
Anyway, all right. Do you have anything for the people?
I would say just be super extra kind.
I agree. Bye.
See you later. Bye-bye.